Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. Please like this stream. Um, please like this video. If you're going to watch it on the back end, once it goes to YouTube, please share it. Please subscribe to my channel. I just brought us in with some music there. That was the foreign exchange. I'm hoping YouTube doesn't, do what it does when you play music. I did a test with that earlier on, and it didn't do anything. But I don't know if anyone's going to watch this. I thought it would be cool to shoot something after that game. One of the cool things about StreamYard is that you can go live immediately after games or sporting events or presidential elections, and I've been rooting for the Clippers the entire season. So this was a big game, and this was a big deal. But the battle for LA is no more. All season we thought that, well, not we, but it was thought that the Lakers and the Clippers were the best two teams in the Western Conference. And prior to COVID-19, I think the conventional wisdom was that those would be the two teams in the Western Conference final. And the Clippers, at some point the Lakers really separated themselves and made themselves the number one seed in the Western Conference. And the Clippers throughout the season, whether it was because of the load management or just not having the same lineup in there the entire time, they were never really able to keep pace for that number one seed. So I think the question always was, were they a true number two to the Lakers number one? And I think the bubble definitely presented its own set of challenges. The players had been off for the entire summer, and then they had to come back in the bubble and try to regain any momentum or get back into basketball shape and basketball form, and under some pretty unusual conditions. The bubble, in my live stream with BGS about a month ago, BGS Ibmore, I stated that it felt more like a basketball camp than an actual professional games, because you're in this closed space and there are no fans in the arena, and it just didn't feel like basketball in an arena. So it felt like a basketball camp. And so one of the things that I think about when I looked at these games in the bubble and the playoffs was that there was no real home court advantage. There was no team. The teams weren't traveling. There was no home court advantage. There were no fans screaming for their team. There was no pressure from the stands for either, for the visiting team. And so it was very much a level playing field or a playing court. And so that's one of the things that was interesting about the bubble. And, some would argue that the Clippers, I think in that first game with the Mavericks, who's that? Porzingis, Kristaps Porzingis got thrown out. And many of the Laker fans said, okay, well, the Clippers, they got lucky, and the Clippers, they should have been eliminated in the first round. And the Clippers survived the Mavericks after Luka Doncic hit that magical shot. And of course, I guess Luka Doncic was hurt. And then they came out and they jumped on the Nuggets in game 1. And then the Nuggets came back with a vengeance in game 2. And the Clippers, I believe, went up 3-1. And then at that point, I know that I was thinking, okay, they're up 3-1. The Nuggets have to win 3 straight to win the series. How likely is that? Well, actually, it turned out to be very, very likely. And a pattern emerged throughout those 3 games that the Nuggets won. The games were just like tonight's game, where the Clippers pretty much won the first half, and then something happened at halftime. The Nuggets seemed to be able to hang around in that first half, even when they got down by a lot. Something seemed to happen after halftime, and the Nuggets came out, hit a stride, and somehow the Clippers stagnated. I don't know how to account for that. I don't know why that happened. Though it does seem like, I don't know if it was Kawhi playing with PG-13. I don't know if I don't know if that was a chemistry thing. I don't know if Kawhi felt like he had to defer to PG-13. But in the second half, the Clippers very much looked indecisive, and they didn't look like they knew where the ball was supposed to go. And it just looked like they didn't have the intensity in the second half for those last 3 games. And as they stagnated after halftime, the Nuggets just kept on rolling and rolling and rolling. Jokic, did his damage from 3-point range, and then from 15 feet from the basket. If he wasn't making his own move, he was setting up one of his teammates, and of course, Nicole Ali. Nicole Ali stopping through. And so it just seemed like, Jokic was killing the Clippers from everywhere, and then Jamal Murray was killing the Clippers from everywhere. He was relentless. He wasn't gonna miss, and he kept his foot on the gas. And the role players were hitting shots, and they were rolling, and it just seemed like Doc Rivers didn't have a plan for what was happening. And you gotta, when you're at the pro level, I think one of the things that the coaches are paid to do is to make adjustments. And I think as I was watching that series, I was thinking, okay, what I probably would have done, and it's easy for me to say because I'm on the sidelines watching like everyone else, but what I probably would have done is I probably would have put a player on Jokic, glued a player to him, and then I would have probably tried to play nice one-on-one defense on the rest of their team so that there wouldn't be all this swinging the ball around to the open guy. I mean, there must have been a way back in the day, the coaches would let one player beat them to prevent the rest of the team from getting off. And that's probably the approach that I would have taken, as opposed to, I don't know what Doc Rivers had diagrammed. I don't know what they had. I don't know what the strategy was to try to stop the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets, or credit to the Nuggets, they had a lot of shooters. You had Jamal Murray, you had Gary, what's his name, from Michigan State, you had Jokic, you had Gary Harris, that's his name. Millsap was hitting shots. All those guys were hitting shots. So that was a tough team to be. Oh boy, look who's here. They're both here. You guys want to come up? Does anyone want to come up into the stream? I'll drop it in the chat. You guys can come up. All right, I'll drop the link in the stream. All right, guys, no cussing. Be nice. All right. These guys are going to give it to me because I've been giving it to them all year. By the way, this new avatar, this is a hat from Dennis Wilson in Buffalo. That's a Buffalo Bills. That's a Buffalo Bills. I think this is called a beat up Buffalo hat. Got to work. Okay. What about your brother? Does he want to come in? Okay. So Abdul Gaines says, speaking in an unbiased fashion. Let me read this first. Speaking in an unbiased fashion, I think this season's Clips were the single biggest single season failure in NBA history. Okay. So we've got royalty here. We got Laker royalty. Okay. So his second comment says this loss will permanently this loss will permanently stay in the Clipper organization. Well, according to you, the Lakers are the heritage team, so the Clippers technically don't have any heritage. So there's really nothing to stain. But it's surprising. It's surprising to me that they signed Kawhi, they signed PG-13, and down the stretch of this series, it seemed like that there was a chemistry thing going on. It seemed like Kawhi didn't know what to do, and it seemed like down the stretch of those games, PG-13 didn't know what to do. And I didn't like the fact that the Clippers were taking all of those outside shots. I was waiting for them to put the ball on the floor and drive to the basket, initiate contact, and go to the free throw line. But instead, what we saw was the ball being just passed around for three-pointers. PG-13 was hitting those shots in the first half, but the basket just seemed to close for them in the second half. And again, the Nuggets just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And even when Jokic went out, Jamal Murray kept it going, and then Millsap hit a couple of threes, and who's that other kid for the Nuggets? Was his last name Long? It just for whatever reason it got away from the Clippers in 3 straight games. I'm gonna read over some of the stats here. Let me pull the stats up for this game. Let me pull the stats up. Nuggets versus Clippers, Game 7. Okay, so the final score was 104-89. Okay. So going quarter by quarter, let's see. At the end of the first quarter, the game was tied 24-24. Okay. So the Clippers won the second quarter by 2 points. They were up by 2 points at halftime. Okay, same pattern. I went over this in my video a couple of days ago after Game 6, where I said I don't think the Clippers have it. So basically, in the third quarter, the Nuggets scored 28 points, and the Clippers scored 18. So they almost doubled their score. And in the fourth quarter, Denver scored 22 points, and the Clippers scored 15. So they didn't quite double their points there, but the Clippers could not close that gap. And that's the same thing that happened in Game 6. You're waiting for them to close the gap, but it's like their offense froze, or they just didn't know what to do. And that's surprising, because Doc Rivers, when you think of Doc Rivers, you think back to those 2008, I believe it was the Boston Celtics, and you think that he's a championship coach. But then this makes you wonder, was it the fact that he had Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce? Is it the fact that Doc Rivers had that big 3? And then he also had Rondo and Kendrick Perkins and Eddie House and Leon Poe and Brian Scalabrine. So he had a loaded squad. So the question is Doc Rivers that good of a coach, or did he just have that loaded squad? Now, for Laker fan, that year, that 2008 season when the Celtics won with the Big Three, Andrew Bynum was hurt. So the Lakers did match up with that Celtics team without one of their bigs. But after that season, Doc Rivers got back to the finals with his Celtics team, coincidentally against Kobe Bryant's Lakers again, and they lost that one. Who was it that got hurt? I think it was Kendrick Perkins got hurt in that one, and Rasheed Wallace had to step in and play in his position. And Ray Allen had one good game, and then he went pretty much cold the rest of that series. And the Lakers took Game 7 off that Ron Artest three-pointer and Paul Gasol's heroics. But after that, you never really heard that much from Doc Rivers in terms of taking a team. No, I think the Celtics team, as it slowly broke apart, obviously Ray Allen was the first one to leave. He went to Miami. They went back to the conference final against the Heatles, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Mike Miller, and those guys, Shane Battier. They almost beat the Heat. But after that, you didn't really hear much about Doc Rivers' teams. I think shortly after that, he took over the Clippers. And he had Chris Paul and those guys, Lob City, Blake Griffin. But he never really got them. He never really got those Clippers teams to the conference final or beyond. So is Doc Rivers that good a coach, or did he just catch lightning in a bottle that year in 2008? So I'm going to read over some of the stats. I'm going to look at some of the stats for this game. I just went through the quarters. So let's look at the point totals. Okay, so for the Nuggets, let's see, Jeremy Grant, that's the kid's name. Jeremy Grant had 14 points. Nikola Jokic had 16, so he didn't do his usual damage. But he did have he had 13 assists. So Jokic had 16 points, 22 rebounds, and 13 assists. Jamal Murray was on fire. He had 40 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. And by the way, he's Canadian, so he's from Ontario, so he's not far from where I grew up in Buffalo. Gary Harris had 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist. So they didn't get outstanding scoring like they did in the last game, but they got a lot from Jamal Murray. I think that pretty much made the difference for them. So the Clippers had 14 from Kawhi Leonard. Okay, that was our number one. You need more than 14 points from your number one, okay, to advance to the Western Conference Final. Okay, so Marcus Morris had 7 points. And throughout this entire playoffs, when they picked up Marcus Morris back in March, right after or right before, I think it was their third matchup with the Lakers. The Lakers won that one. You know, I'm not picking on Marcus Morris, but I thought he shot too much. I thought that he's got 3-point range, but every time he shot the ball, I was thinking, okay, that should be Kawhi or PG-13 shooting that. So Marcus Morris scored 7 points. Zubats, 6 points. Okay, you probably needed more points from Zubats. Paul George, 10 points. Okay, so the Clippers' number 1 and number 2 options scored a combined total of 24 points. Okay, that's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. Beverly scored 11. Montrezl Harrell had a good game with 20 points, and he was getting off in the first half. With Lou Williams, they had a nice two-man game going, and they kind of went away from that in the second half. I don't know why. He only had 3 rebounds, and Jermichael Green had 11 points and 6 rebounds and no assists. So these are not impressive scoring totals for the Clippers. So with the way that the Nuggets were rolling, go back. With the way that the Nuggets were rolling, with all the firepower, with Jokic, with Jamal Murray, this offensive output for the Clippers just was not enough. And they only scored 89 points. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. Perhaps they weren't the team that we thought that they were throughout the entire season. Maybe Doc Rivers isn't the coach that we all thought he was. And again, I was disappointed because it seemed like they didn't make adjustments down the stretch of that series when they saw what Denver was doing, and Denver was doing well. I thought that Doc should have done Doc and who was on that bench? Tyronn Lue was on that bench. Sam Cassell was on that bench. I think someone should have thought of something. But then again, some teams are just tailor-made for other teams. And I did not, I have to admit, I did not see Denver play that much all season. And so I did not know how good Nikola Jokic was. I didn't know how good Jamal Murray was. I didn't know how good that team was. So now the Nuggets get LeBron and the Lakers. And I suspect the way this usually works out is that, the Clippers got knocked off, but I suspect the Lakers will find some way to win that series. It's just the way it always goes. If the Nuggets stick it to the Lakers, that will be wow. That will be a shocker, and I think Laker fan will be knocked back on his and her heels if that happens. But it's just the way the ball bounces. They upset the Clippers. Well, yeah, they upset the Clippers, and then the question is, will they be able to do that to the Lakers as well? LeBron is LeBron. He's the king. He presents all of those matchup problems. AD is his number 2. They got shooting from Rondo and Caldwell Pope and the rest of those guys when they punked Houston. But will they still get that production from them against Denver? And how will the Lakers match up with Denver? Their youth, their athleticism, their shooting, and how will the Lakers match up with Nikola Jokic, the Joker? Now, the Lakers, they do have AD, and they do have Dwight Howard, so they do have 2 long and athletic guys who can match up with him. But will they slow him down? And I think that might have been someone in my Facebook network that said that was the matchup that was arguably killing the Clippers, and that the Clippers had no one to match up with Jokic. I keep saying that wrong. The Joker. We'll call him the Joker for the rest of the time I'm talking. Our Facebook friend said that they didn't have anyone to match up with him. And I think that, I think Zubac did a decent job, but I think that for Harrell, I think Jokic was a little bit bigger than Montrezl Harrell. And so that presented a huge matchup problem. He's a versatile big man. He could shoot it. He could put the ball on the floor. He was bringing the ball up the court. He could pass out of the post. And he was really, really gashing the Clippers. So that's it. It's late. It's 12:20 here on the East Coast. I just wanted to get up here and say a few words about that ugly Clipper implosion. What was interesting is Kawhi also looked like he was they knocked Kawhi out of his comfort zone. And usually what you're looking for from your number one, and this is something that LeBron's got beaten up over, what you're usually looking for from your number one is for your number one to take a stranglehold over the game, the way MJ used to, the way Kobe would. That's what you're usually looking for. And in some instances, Barkley did that. Even though Barkley never won a ring, Abdul Gaines and Raheem Gaines, they kind of they like to dump on Barkley and Reggie Miller. But you're usually looking for your number one to tell the other guys, give me the ball and get out of the way. I didn't really see that from Kawhi. I think that the Nuggets kind of got in his head in game 2 because they were draped all over him. But he did come back and have a few more good games. But I was looking for him to take over. I was looking for him to put the ball on the floor and initiate contact and put pressure on the Nuggets defense. But in the second half, he was just passive and unsure. And in some instances, he looked confused and he looked like he wanted to get calls from the refs. And it just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't what I expected. But, his critics say that he beat his Toronto team last year, beat a hobbled Golden State team. And when Kawhi won in San Antonio, he was playing alongside Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and those guys. So he had a nice supporting cast. So a lot of folks have speculated that even Kawhi is a fraud and he's not the player that they've been saying that he was. So a lot of folks are happy tonight that Kawhi lost. I know 2 guys in my text group they're really, really happy about this. And they're probably going to give me the business for the rest of the week and probably the rest of the year. And I may never live rooting for the Clippers down. But I had a good time rooting for the Clippers this year. And spiting Laker fan. I had a really good time. And I'd probably do it again. But it's 12:24 here on the East Coast. I just wanted to get up and say a few words on what happened. So I will watch the Nuggets. Excuse me. I will watch and see how the Nuggets do against the Lakers. And over in the East, Miami beat Boston in game 1, I believe. There was someone made a really good block on Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum went in for a dunk in the closing seconds of that game, and one of the Miami players made a really, really athletic play and sent it back. So, what would be ideal is to see the classic matchup, the Lakers versus the Celtics. And so, we might get that in the NBA Finals. So we got some good news earlier today that the Big Ten is going to play, it looks like, an 8-game season. So look out for content on this channel about the Big Ten and about Michigan football. I like to say that Michigan football for this channel is the rock on which I've built my church. And my Michigan football content was very, very well received before COVID-19 took its hold on our country. And so I was really, really banking on turning out lots and lots of Michigan football content this fall. So with us having a season now and 8 games, that's going to give me more Michigan football content to pump out and hopefully continue to grow this channel, because the Michigan fan base is very, very passionate. Now, it's interesting. I'm probably going to drop a video on this tomorrow or Thursday. One of my subs told me that he's boycotting sports right now. And he said quite a few folks are boycotting the NBA and the NFL because they don't want to see social justice. And they don't want to be thinking about social justice while they're trying to unplug and watch their athletics. And this particular sub said, your viewership might be down just a little bit right now because some of us are boycotting. But again, the Michigan football content for me was the bread and butter of this channel. So I've had to kind of look for other things to cover as this whole thing got worked out. So fortunately, it looks like they're going to play. And so you're going to see a lot more. You're going to see Michigan football videos back here on Big Discussions 76 Sports. In any case, this is probably only my 3rd or 4th live stream on this channel. With Michigan football coming back, I will be doing more live streams, especially after the games. So I suspect with the viewership I was getting on my off-season content on Jim Harbaugh and Don Brown and who our quarterback was going to be, I suspect that I'll get more viewership on these live streams, especially after the games and depending upon how things go in our 8-game season. So I'm gonna it's late. I didn't expect a lot of participation for this one. I'm still new to using StreamYard, and using StreamYard is a lot of fun. So I have to work in the morning, so I'm going to wrap this up. The way StreamYard works, there will be a quote unquote permanent record over on my YouTube channel. I did play some music at the beginning of this stream, so hopefully that doesn't get the copyright thing. I don't want to say it because I don't want the algorithm to catch it. But so I'm going to stop here. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. The battle for LA, it was a good idea. I was hoping for it. I was pushing for it. But sometimes it's just not meant to be. Just like our 1990-91 Buffalo Bills. That field goal went wide right. And sometimes things just aren't meant to be. So if they keep that core team together for the Clippers and they bring Doc Rivers back, maybe they can learn something and maybe add a part and maybe get a little tougher next year. I know that this must have been an embarrassing. Well, this was an embarrassing way to go out, and it was hard. I know it's going to be a hard off season for those players to have to watch the Nuggets play and to also just wonder what happened and how did this happen and how did we give up a 3-1 lead and how did we disappear in the second half of those games. So they have a lot of soul searching to do, but hey, congratulations to Denver and good luck against the Lakers. And I'm going to stop this here and get ready to lay down. So as always, thank you for those who listened and watched and commented. Thank you. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care. I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.